It's been almost 30 years, or at least 27, since I started. Indeed, quite often I am asked, will the interpreter come with their own booth? And I say yes, almost like a snail is always coming with its own booth. So I will try to be brief this time. I will try to follow the timeline and to leave some time for the Q&A. So this is a working title, Hardware as a Help, and here is a quote from Grigory Skovoroda. If you are the darkness, there is always hell around of you. So if you do not understand something, you will always invent some dark forces. For instance, if you do not know about the equipment. So let us discuss some of the hardware we use in our simultaneous interpretation. It's not some kind of a dark room or Deus Ex Machina. It's something that you can actually understand, and if you do understand, you can ask the right questions or provide the right answers to the customer. So these are the general principles of sound equipment. What is sound? Sound is the oscillation of some medium, for instance, the air or water. In our case, it's air, of course, because we are not fish. So when we speak, we breathe out some air, and it passes through our vocal cords. The vocal cords vibrate, and also with support of our mouth, with support of our tongue and lips, we create some vibrations, and these vibrations they reach the recipient, for instance, the ears of the person we are talking to, or a microphone. So these waves in the air, the waves you can see in this image, the sound waves, they entail the oscillations of membrane in the person's ear or in the microphone. So this is once again the definition of the sound. Usually by this term we mean the oscillations which can be perceived by people and animals, waves that are spread through the air. And these oscillations of the media, they also can influence the microphones, the devices that are sensitive to such waves. So the microphones would then transform those oscillations into electric signals, which are then transformed by some other devices, which amplify them and transfer them to other places, for instance, to the sound engineers' dashboards, or to the listeners, to the video, to the streams, and then the sound is processed and transmitted further. So this is how we can symbolically show these mechanical oscillations. This is how sound reaches the ear of the listener. And here you can see the general scheme of work of electronic equipment. So as a core of the system, you have this equalizer board which gets the signals from all kinds of equipment, and having received all of those signals, this device can then transfer it to the computer, or to the speakers in the audience, or to the booth of the interpreter. And this is the central, the core element of this system. Then we also have amplifiers, sound systems, etc. So a similar system here with multiple microphones. This is something much like the interpreters would use, because each speaker has their own microphone. Also, there is a headset here. So this is just another option. And this is the general illustration of how sound equipment works. There are two possible types of interpreters booth. And there are radio microphones, there are tabletop microphones, there is some equipment for the sound engineer, and there are headsets for listening of interpretation on each of the chairs. So this is a general principle of how simultaneous interpretation equipment works. And so we started from the fact that there is sound, and the microphone is used to get the sound into the system. There are different types of microphones, different designs, different characteristics, and let me briefly describe all of them and which one is better for different use. So the first one is a classic dynamic handheld microphone. In the 99% of different conferences, this is exactly the type of microphone you would use. Here is a studio condenser mic. Quite often you would see those in video clips, and they look good. This is a studio mic. This is what we sometimes call the surface layer microphone. Usually they are on the table. They are omnidirectional, which means that people can be sitting around the table, and the microphone will be able to get the signals, both useful sound and not very much useful, meaning different noises. For instance, the noise of the paper, of the pen, etc. So these microphones are convenient in the sense that you only need one to work, but also it's difficult to work with them because the quality of the sound is lower, because you also hear different hindrances. So this is the so-called lavalier microphone, and also the studio microphone, and it is designed in such a way that it is protected from different kinds of noises. Just if you accidentally hit the table, this noise will not influence the microphone. Or for instance, if you put the pencil on the table. This is how the microphone is protected. So what is the advantage of the headset microphone? Well, the advantage is having free hands, which is good for the speaker. Also, the distance between the lips and the microphones, it's always the same. Even if, for instance, a person like me has decades of experience, sometimes I would do this mistake, and I will use my microphone as a pointer. I will hit the microphone, I will breathe into the microphone, I will move it further away from me, and you can always hear these advantages of the interpreter's profession. These are, of course, the obstacles to the work of the interpreter, but the headset microphone is something that always protects you. That's the microphone which is always at the same distance from the speaker's lips. So this is something the most convenient for the speakers and for the listeners. But sometimes the speaker can feel the pressure on the head. So yeah, tastes differ. Here you can see the classic design of a dynamic microphone. So these are the sound waves, this is the diaphragm, and then it is attached to the magnet core, which is moving back and forth, and thanks to this coil some current is created and then it is amplified. There is always an amplifier used with such a microphone, but this is the way sound is transformed into electric signals. This is a condenser mic, and it does not have a coil, but it has some film, thanks to which the capacity of this condenser is changing, and in such a way thanks to this difference of capacity, electric signals are being created, and they are created based on the sound signal. The condenser mics are able to create a better quality sound, but they also require external power, because the signal here is weaker. So not always can we use both types of the microphones, and if the microphone requires external power and you do not have external power on your board, then you will not be able to use the condenser mic, and the signal will be too weak. And then there is this electrostatic microphone, which is a type of it, a type of the condenser mic. You are using them on a daily basis in your cell phones, laptops, etc. But this is something that is far from the best for the interpreter's work. It is quite sensitive to the environment, and it also requires some external power. So these are some of the characteristics of the microphones, and this is an omnidirectional microphone. This is quite often the popular Blue Yeti microphone or the surface layer microphone. By the way, in the Blue Yeti there are 3 different modes of work. The omnidirectional mode, when, for instance, the microphone is in the center of the round table, and it gets all the sounds, including the noises. Then you can switch it into this 2-directional mode, which is very convenient for interviews. You are situated on both sides of the microphone, as you can see in the illustration, and the farther you are from the axis of this cardioid, the weaker the sound. And also there is the classic cardioid mode, which is basically the characteristics of the general microphone. So there is cardioid, supercardioid, and hypercardioid. The difference is in the form. So the general cardioid is mainly taken a sound from the front, and supercardioid is not taking any sound from the back, and hypercardioid is taking some of the side sounds. So supercardioid is the best for the work of an interpreter. So if you imagine the sensitivity of a microphone as a funnel before your lips, then a supercardioid is the thinnest cardioid, and you have to be careful with how exactly you speak into this microphone, but then you also protect your audience or your interpreters from the external noises. Which is the best choice of the microphone? So sometimes we see these examples of the microphones. Most probably the worst microphone for an interpreter would be the surface microphone on the table. It is only suitable in some haphazard conditions when there is no time for the proper equipment. This is the worst solution. As for the lapel microphone, it's mainly intended for studio use because usually this microphone is attached to the clothes, and it is not protected from the sound in the speakers, so it's intended for the use in the rooms where there are no speakers. And we had a very difficult task with the European Commission. They had 12 different microphones of this type, and it required a very complicated orchestration of the work of operators, because we needed to protect the microphones from the sound of the speakers. And by the way, this is something that makes it more difficult for the interpreters to work if we artificially limit the scope of the sound. Then there is this tabletop microphone. If it's a standard microphone, as the one you can see in the middle, it's not the best solution, in the sense that if the person starts moving back and forth, there are very serious fluctuations in the sound. And once an interpreter made a video and posted it on social media, how he worked and how he was rocking back and forth, and it was quite clear that this impacted the sound. So in some companies, they also install compensators for the microphones, which is intended to remove these fluctuations of the sound. This is expensive professional equipment, and not always this function is available. I prefer headsets for the interpretation booth. That's because it is more stable. The interpreter can move the heads forwards and backwards. One interpreter used to interpret while lying down on the floor, and this did not impact the sound. Here are the types of jacks, and again, if you want to use your own headset or your own microphone, so you need to know about the types of different connectors. So there are XLRs, there are jacks. There is a universal XLR jack with the 3 holes and a bigger hole in the middle. There are also different types of jacks with different numbers of contacts, and the names also differ. R stands for a ring here, and depending on the number of rings, you will get a different number of R's in the title. Also, if you, for instance, have 2 different jacks for the microphone and for the speaker on your headset, and you can only one socket on your laptop, then you will have to use this kind of an adapter. Here is an example of the RCA cable. Usually they were used for TVs and home video. And here is the mixer board, which collects signals from different sources, brings them together, and this is necessary to further transfer this signal to the speakers or to the interpretation booth. Sometimes some signal is available in the speakers but not available in the booth. For instance, if the interpreters do not need to hear the sound which is played in the room. So there are some XLR and some jack connectors, and XLRs are usually more sensitive, while jacks are linear, and the difference in the electric power is up to 10 times high, so please be careful when you switch anything. So there are some jacks, there are some XLRs, and the difference between XLR microphone and the jack linear signal is as high as 10 times. I'm not sharing this information for you to use these mixers on your own. I'm just explaining for you to understand what is happening there and to have the proper language for the communication with your technician at your event. And also, if you want to use such a mixer at home, and if you want to use a professional microphone on your Zoom for remote simultaneous interpretation, so that you are able to set some settings on your own or use support of your technician. There are some settings. On top you have gain, which is sensitivity of the microphone amplifier. So these are the 2 black regulators on top. Then there are frequency regulators of high, medium and low frequencies. Next there is auxiliary channel regulator, and also the balance of right and left. If it is in the middle, then we will have the same signal in both channels. I have 2 minutes left. Okay, so thanks to the settings of the frequencies, thanks to the equalizer, you are able to improve the quality of your sound. So the medium frequencies are the ones most suitable to the range of human speech, and the low and high frequencies add more color to the sound. So, for instance, some people don't even hear the higher pitches themselves, but somehow these higher pitches contribute to better understanding. And I do not see any sense in a mixer board with a smaller number of regulators, because if you have at least 3, you have this opportunity to improve the sound. Here is an example of noise cancelling headsets. The first headset was invented by the military and the hunters. This headset enables conversations with your mates, but when you would hear firearms, your ears are protected, just as our grandparents would open their mouths to somehow protect their ears while shooting. So here you can see the Sony headset, and please pay attention to them. So there are anti-shock headsets, and there are noise reductions headsets. So anti-shock headsets protect you from the peak sounds, but these noise reduction headsets, they neutralize external noise from all the external noises. So they are great, Sony, Sennheiser, etc. But these are the headsets which are not the best for removing peak sounds. For instance, if someone drops the microphone on the floor. So here is one more tool of which I learned from Andrei Besedin, and this device is called limiter. This is something you connect together with your headset. You can even set the level at which the limiter will work, and it will basically cut off all the sounds that are too loud, thus protecting your ears from overloads. Here is how we select headsets. I wrote many articles about this. I consulted people, but my final solution is that please buy the headsets you are convenient with, and please make sure that you connect them right in the store. You can come with your cell phone or with your tablet. There is usually a testing room, and there is a testing mode in different applications like Skype or Viber. So you can hear your own sound thanks to that, and if you are satisfied with the quality and with the look and feel of the headset, please buy them. All the other details are less important. It's important for you to like the headset and to like the sound. So the first criterion is convenience, and you will have this presentation for later use. So this is how our workplace is arranged. Again, it needs to be convenient, it needs to be protected from noises. For instance, if an interpreter lives in a house where there are dogs or children, you can make your own booth. You can use some makeshift materials, for instance, egg packaging material. So these are, so to speak, quasi-booths. These are the settings that people use. Most importantly, you should keep your door closed, your windows closed, and to have your air conditioning on low noise mode. And also please stay away from those noise making objects. And also, if you do not like shaving and if you're a male, please avoid touching the microphone with your beard. And one more thing that I needed to mention is external sound cards. On some laptops there is on the USB there is a big amount of adapters needed, and the more of them you have, the higher the probability that you will get some extra noise in your sound channel. Also, in some of the modern laptops, the headset connected through the jack is simply invisible to the system, so please spend some money, at least 70 to 200 hryvnias for such a little device. It's even possible to switch off the microphone. It's almost like a small switching board of the interpreter. It's not a full-fledged substitute, but it's at least something, and you can start with this, you can work with this. And in this second one you can connect two different headsets, otherwise it would be an impossibility because each computer sees only one headset connected to the audio input, and if you decide to work with a partner and if you do not have a technician available to work in your normal conditions, you will still be able to use such a sound card, thus temporarily imitating the interpreter's mixer board. Thank you, Dmytro, for your introduction to the equipment, and we truly hope that the era of offline events will come back. Meanwhile, we are trying to be as practical as possible. Dmytro, please come back. We still have time for discussion. So a simultaneous interpreter who can work at home. By the way, here we have our colleague Alexei Babansky, who has brought the audio mixer, and we already have understood the things we need for remote simultaneous interpretation, but this is a more, so to speak, more advanced mode. So I'm thinking right now about buying such things, and Alexei, we would like to hear from you about them. So it is a more advanced level, and we unfortunately sometimes experience difficult situations, so we have to keep our drinking water on the floor, preferably. Guess why? So it's a great honor to speak here on the same stage with Dmytro Ivanovich, and so I would like to introduce this technology to you. So a mixer board as a substitute of a headset which is connected directly to the USB. As Dmytro has rightly mentioned, there are different interfaces. It is possible to connect directly to the USB. By the way, you can also connect to your cell phone directly. We are mainly using this for music, but it's also suitable for interpretation. So the difference between the USB boards and mixer boards is that this way the analog sound is transformed into digital signal. So then the signal is transferred to the computer. And we found out that not all the mixer boards which are positioned as USB mixers, they are not always able to produce the sum of all sounds. So once we bought an 8-channel audio interface, and we believe that it will work and we will use it for our musical performance, but unfortunately we could only hear 2 channels, and the Facebook or Zoom would not be able to catch all of those channels. So, dear colleagues, this is quite an interesting discussion, I know, but for a regular person like me, I am an interpreter, I have a computer, I have a headset, I have internet. Yeah, so why do I need to buy this stuff? If you buy a dynamic microphone, some of the condenser mics, as you have heard, they require additional power, and there are dynamic microphones. So if you connect your microphone directly to this mixer board, you are able to control all the parameters that Dmytro Ivanovich has mentioned. And also you can connect a sound card, which can be a more expensive card, more expensive than the ones I showed you. So here there are no medium frequencies, so this is something that's probably suitable for your music performances, but for the speech, for the interpretation, we need to have more medium range sounds. And these are exactly the ranges of human speech. So also professional external cards can be used. It costs several thousand hryvnias, but if you have such a card, you will be able to get all the signals from the mixer board to the computer. Yes, there are different solutions. So this is something that you are able to buy on a budget. And there are only 3 mixers of this type. Behringer, Yamaha, AG series, and Soundcraft. So these are the 3 companies, the mixers of which are truly able to mix all the channels for your streams, for your Zoom, etc. So Behringer is the cheapest. It can cost 1.5 or 2,000 hryvnias. It even has an equalizer, and in a day you will be able to hear us performing. We will be using this mixer during this performance, and unlike Yamaha, which costs 5,000 hryvnias, this costs under 2,000. And also, if you have the OTG USB connector, USB on the go, you are able to use it with your cell phone. So you are connecting this to the Type-C connector of your smartphone, and this way you will be able to stream, to broadcast on social media, and you will be able to use this mixer this way. Yes, this is a quick solution. And even if you do not have an equalizer, but if the mixer is connected to the computer, you can use some software equalizers, which is an entirely different topic to discuss, but there are two applications which are quite well developed, and you will be able to regulate your sound on the software level. Yes, this is exactly what my question was all about. So if I bring this thing home, I found where to change the volume, where to connect. What do I do next? You read the manual. Other options? Nope. Okay, understood. And let us come back to the slide with the limiters. So I need to know the price of the limiter, and does it truly work? I mean, if something bad happens in the audience, will it actually protect the ear? Yes, it does work. I saw it used by our colleagues at an event, and Andrei Besedin told us it costs about 100 euros. I believe that Andrei has taken it to some place and had it adjusted to his particular headset, but in this regard, Andrei Besedin is the most experienced person. In this regard, he has this limiter, and he has this limiter adjusted to fit his particular headset. So yeah, this is not my personal conversation with Dmytro. We also have the audience here. Do you have any questions? Thank you. I have a question here, and I would like to learn about the software for equalizing. Yeah, I don't remember the names, but that's because I do not use them. If you Google equalizer software on Google, I will try to Google during the break, and if I do find, I will share. But you can see the lists of such equalizer software, and the majority of bloggers, they select these two. So unfortunately, I do not remember the names. Anyone else? Questions, please.
What are the worst headsets that you've ever encountered? The headsets that stand in your way. Those that are pressing too much on your head, or they are too easy to break. But the worst headsets are those that press your head a little too much, and you get tired physically. You start to notice them. The best headsets are those that you the least notice. It's like they are a nuisance. So the headsets that feel organic part of you, like you wear them and you forget about them. So the AirPods, you can use them? No, you can't use them. Let me explain why. Thing is that AirPods and big headsets with the proper speaker, they have different electrical they have low impedance and high impedance. If there's a high impedance in a headset, that means the sound is too soft. The high impedance for headsets that are full size and high impedance for AirPods is completely different. You with your colleague in the booth will be listening to different loudness of a sound because the impedance of both headsets is different. Like there's one colleague approaching me today and said, can I plug in my headsets? I need a jumper there. And I say, if we find a jumper or connector, no problem. But the potential problem is that there will be different impedance of both headsets. And for the booth, the device is the same, but two different microphones produce different volume, produce different loudness. So I will be forced to put the volume all the way up, but my colleague may be overloaded with the signal because they have a different headset, and or vice versa. You'll hear that the sound is too soft, and somebody plugs in a different headset and the impedance jumps up or down, and everybody gets a loud noise in their ears. So use at least one headset or the same make of two headsets that will be the same, have the same impedance, and to avoid the technical glitches and difference in loudness. I wanted to ask whether there's a difference between 3.5 jack and the USB input. Does it impact the quality of sound? There's a situation where I was using one RSI platform through 3.5 jack, and they said my sound is not too good and I should buy a USB card. Yeah, they all ask for USB jack, for USB connection. Right, because some computers, they don't recognize your headset with the jack 3.5. Let's go back to the slide. You see, this jack has 3 black stripes. Those are isolators. For me, it was a discovery. I'm an engineer back from Soviet times, and I didn't know this. Turns out there are jacks, TRS, like 3 contact zones, 4 contact zones, and they have swapped the ground with the contact. One of the standards that I was used to, that the bottom-most slice is ground, is 0. But there are newer jacks where ground is in the middle, surrounded by signal. So if it's TRS, like a universal jack for your phones, has left and right, then microphone, then ground. Or microphone, left, right, and then ground. I don't remember exactly. But this one, the closest one, is the ground. But it turns out there are 2 different jacks. And in one of them, the ground is not the last one. So you come with a jack and it doesn't work. Or it works wrong way. Because their contacts are different. You can wiggle it around, make it sound a little bit, but then it breaks down again. So if you buy a jumper or connector for USB like this, so this one, this jack, you plug it into the computer, you check whether everything works, because USB is uniform everywhere. Have I answered your question? Great. Thank you. Are there any more questions?
Немає? Це зрозуміло? Тоді я скажу, що оце от обладнання, я так розумію, оці обладнання, да? Він буде тут увесь.
So the equipment is going to be here. This mixer will be used one of these days during the music jam, and colleagues here to ask questions, and we're happy to take questions.